Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Winnipeg Jets, the fact that they're the last undefeated team in the NHL, and getting into all that. So, before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So last season proved to be a terrific year for the organization as they had their second best season in franchise history. This year is even better, at least at the start, as they're looking to be the best it's ever done it in Manitoba. And during this 8-game run where they've gone undefeated, they made a little bit of NHL history along the way, as Scott Arniel is now the first NHL head coach to go undefeated in his first 8 games with the team. So looking at all this, we kind of get to talk about these things and get excited and see exactly what are some of the takeaways for this team. And I think starting off right away, we can talk about how this organization has either been able to go out there and score a lot of goals in these games, or they've been able to win those close ones. You look at the fact that they've scored 5 goals or more in 4 of their games, that's a good sign, but they've got a pair of 2-1 victories as well as a 4-3 win. So you can see this team either go out there and win a big one, or you can see them kind of more in that playoff type atmosphere where they're in those close games. And I know fans probably are looking at this and saying, well, I'm not super comfortable with the fact my team is going out there and winning 2-1, maybe against a team like Chicago like they did a little bit earlier in the season. And to me, I say it's okay for a couple of reasons. One, looking at this, a win is a win, especially when you go into the regular season. Being able to get 2 points anytime is going to be a good thing. And then 2, I think it is good for teams to go out there and get challenged. You think of some historically good teams, especially ones that have come up short come playoff time. You could maybe look back at the regular season and see that maybe they didn't play a lot of close games because they were just beating up on everybody. And then next thing you know, when they face a little bit of adversity, they fold under the pressure. One thing that hasn't folded under the pressure is Winnipeg's power play, as at the time we're recording this, they have the top power play percentage in the league. They've been able to score in 5 out of their 8 games, and they have 3 games where they've got 2 goals or more on the man advantage. They actually had a game against San Jose where they beat them 8-3. They had 4 power play goals in that game. That's very promising. And then some other things that have gone well in this time that we can look at. Connor Hellebuyck has looked amazing. Fresh off of his Vezina season, he has followed that up with a .940 save percentage and has got, I think, 6 or 7 wins at the time of recording this video. Things have looked amazing for him. The PK percentage is top 10 in the league, and while they are allowing a decent amount of chances, you can at least say, well, we've got Connor Hellebuyck in nets, so as long as the power play is clicking, Connor is in net for the PK, and then things are going well at 5-on-5, you can understand why people are pretty excited about how things have started. Now, are there reasons to be kind of concerned about what we've seen from this team to start off? I think there's a couple reasons why you could go out there and say, I'm very nervous about this team. I'm not exactly buying that they are one of the best teams in the NHL competing for the President's Trophy. And I think one of those things that we could kind of highlight is the fact that out of their 8 wins this season, 7 of those have come against teams that didn't play in the playoffs last year. And I know that some of these teams might go out there and make the postseason this year, but if we see Winnipeg end up going and stumbling a little bit as they face stronger competition, maybe people will point to this and say, oh yeah, this was kind of an indicator of things to come because they were playing teams that really weren't expected to be great for the most part. But that's one thing you can kind of look at a little bit later. As for another thing too, 6 out of the 8 games that they've played in, they have trailed at one point or another. I do think that I can defend them a little bit here though, because in a lot of those games, they're down 1-0 before they go off for 2, 3, or even 4 goals. And they are not, disturbed in that time. So they're going from down 1-0 to being up 3-1, and then they're able to really put a chokehold on the game and go out there and win it. And I do think there's some other reasons to be concerned as well. We talked about the power play being really good and clicking, but you realize too, if you take away their empty netter goals, that their power play accounts for about 1/3 of their goals. And we've talked before about how on the channel, typically teams kind of fall within a certain percentage of how much their power play goals account for their total goals. This is on the high end, and you understand too, Winnipeg being able to be a top power play team isn't impossible, maybe like top 10, top 5, but being number 1 would be hard to do, especially when they're clicking at the rate that they're at the moment. So that is a little bit more problematic too when you look at some things like their expected goals for percentage or their expected goals for total, things like 5-on-5. Their even strength totals have been good, so I'll give them that. But I do think part of their numbers are a little bit skewed in a very small sample size right now, mainly because they played such a small amount of games, and they've got those games where they got the 8-3 win against San Jose, the 6-3 win against Pittsburgh, things like that, where over the course of the season, things will level out a little bit. And then if you want to look at something that is a little bit concerning as well, their top line of Connor, Scheifele, and then Velarde has been outscored if you take away the power play. So again, the man advantage might be covering up things a little bit here. And when you look at some of the other things we talked about, like their strength of schedule, if you will, there are a couple reasons why you could see this team drop off a little bit. A drop off is to be expected because they can't go undefeated for a full 82 games, otherwise they would be crowned as the greatest team in NHL history. However, you might see a period where they slide a little bit more than maybe you expected. And I think for a lot of the doubters, you could point at this and say, oh, there's proof. But for me, again, for a team that's had a pretty good run for their franchise's history and where they haven't really been very bad, where they had a really, really good year last season, despite the fact that they fell in the playoffs, I'm going to say wait things out a little bit. You know this team is good, and you know that they built a nice cushion for themselves to where even if they don't go out there and win their division, they could still very well be a top 3 team in their division by the end of the year. Thanks in part to teams like Nashville and Colorado getting out to a slow start. I feel like Winnipeg at this point, I will say, is going to be a team that finishes top 3 in the division as long as Connor Hellebuyck is healthy. And I think that they still have quite a bit to play for. It's not like they just magically are going to run into some adversity and say, well, you know what, guys, this was a good run. The season's over. It's okay. No, they realize that they have a potential to go out there and do some things that this organization has never done before. And they're a hungry group. It's not like they've been to the top of the NHL mountain just yet. They have that drive. They have that hunger. They aren't an organization that's won a championship. So I would imagine they would want to go out there and win a championship. And then you've got guys as well like Hellebuyck that are going out there and playing for individual awards, as well as playing for a fan base that I know is really passionate about this team, but just hasn't had a whole lot to cheer for since they came over from Atlanta. At the end of the day, Winnipeg is, undefeated. Nobody's been able to beat them yet, and as long as they continue to win, again, their odds of going out there and winning the division or winning the President's Trophy are great, and they're seeing some teams that could be threats for the President's Trophy, especially kind of stumble at certain points. Looking at a team like New Jersey that I felt like I was pretty high on right now. They're on a 4-game losing streak, and some other clubs as well just really haven't been able to get off to a great start. So Winnipeg, try to clean things up a little bit, but continue to win. That's really all that matters at this point, and we'll see exactly what happens there. So, with that being said, what exactly are your thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets? Do you think that this is a team that is good just because they played bad teams? Do you think they are a good team regardless of the fact of who they're going to play? And do you think they'll be able to maintain their top spot out in the Central Division, the Western Conference, and the NHL? Let me know all those thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, alright? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.